So tonight is the anniversary edition of Dynamite. That's right, AEW Dynamite is 3 years old this evening. But that's not the main thing that I want to talk about. The thing that I want to talk about tonight is one of the matches that's going down, and that is MJF versus Wheeler Yuta. Now, if you know me and you followed me on social media and you watched any of these videos and you're a sane person, you'll know that MJF is one of my favourite wrestlers currently. He is absolutely fantastic, not only in the ropes, but of course on the microphone. And leading up into this, he has had to go through some adversity, should we say. We all know the issues surrounding CM Punk and the Elite. And obviously that's meant that what was going to happen with MJF and Punk's feud continuing, we presume that was what was going to happen. That was the direction we were going to take based off everything that happened at All Out, the ending of All Out, before CM Punk had one too many muffins and lost his mind at a press conference, and the rest is for legal to decide. That was the route we were going to go down, but now that's not what's happening. AEW's had to take a different direction, and therefore the MJF storylines had to take a different direction. And Maxwell being Maxwell, it's interesting to see what he's potentially pitching here. So, yes, he's got that giant poker chip that's a little bit ridiculous that he carries around with him, but he can cash that in when he wants, right? So it's the old money in the bank looming over the champion concept. But we might be getting something a little bit more special than that. And yes, that will be used to tell a story here and help him get it at the opportune time, because he's very opportunistic. But the fact that Moxley's the champion and effectively the leader now of the Blackpool Combat Club, you could argue that Daniel Bryan's on that same level, but as Moxley's the champ, he's kind of the leader, you would say and assume. Obviously, they all sort of work together as a cohesive unit, and I'm sure William Regal doesn't have a tiered structure when he's coming up with these things like that. They're just nailing each other when they're training. But because of this, with Jon Moxley being the leader of the faction, you've got MJF now in a feud with Wheeler Yuta, the lower end of the Blackpool Combat Club, if you were going to kind of rank them in terms of experience and where they're potentially at on the card. Are we going to see almost the reverse of the MJF trope of the person trying to get to MJF working through every person in his faction to get to MJF? Are we almost seeing MJF turn that on its head for him to run through the Blackpool Combat Club one by one to destroy the Blackpool Combat Club? And that can be a story they tell over time. It might be that you get something with Wheeler Yuta, we get something with Claudio. Now, where you position Moxley and Bryan in this potential long-term story is where it gets interesting, because you could have MJF cash in after he's dealt with Euler and Claudio in some fashion, right? And he takes that title, and then that bubbles away that he's beaten 3 out of the 4, and that leads into a story with Daniel Bryan, which is ground we've not touched. We've not looked at that at all. We've not thought about that and what that might look like. But you have months of storytelling here with the Blackpool Combat Club and MJF. And I'm hoping that's what we're getting. I'm hoping we're kind of getting MJF working through each member of the Blackpool Combat Club and dispersing of them somehow through whatever means necessary to MJF. So he'll do what needs to be done to get those wins. And then having the title and cementing himself as the legitimate champion, right? MJF will do MJF stuff to hold on to it as we then build, and hopefully he holds that for another year. Imagine you have MJF run with the title for a year leading up to 2024, and he essentially CM Punk's it, and he's the one holding the title, and Punk's the one trying to keep it in AEW, depending on if CM Punk ever comes back to AEW after his injury. That remains to be seen whether or not that happens. But imagine this is the start of that run, And he does it by working through the Blackpool Combat Club one by one and goes through them, changing how we've seen things in the past where everyone has to go through MJF's lackeys to get to MJF. MJF goes through every one of them to get to the belt. And then he cashes it in to stop them running from him. And then when he's got that belt, he goes on a run that's a year long. And he keeps alluding to that he's going to take that belt with him to the Fed. And that writes itself. You have one of the best heel characters doing one of the most heelish things. You can have anyone who rises up across the next year challenging to get that belt off him. The closer we get to that 2024 bidding war, the closer we get to that, the more the stakes rise as we go through. The heat builds, the anticipation builds, the real life situation builds, because due to all reports, that is the contact situation. He's not, apparently, the reports are that he's not signed an extension. He's just been given more money, and rightly so. I think Tony Khan's done the right thing there. So you then have the real life side of it, which I think MJF gets is part of the show now. The reality, the behind the scenes is interwoven with the television product, and that makes for amazing wrestling. So let's see what happens, and I hope we get MJF going on a crazy run, holding it for the next year and taking out the Blackpool Combat Club. But what do you think? What do you think MJF's going to do? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to German Suplex.